of the best sim racers. $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought-after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche Esports Super Cup.
iRacing, you wanted the best, you got them 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaw.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God! Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Sec's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
It's midweek once again on the iRacing Esports Network, and here on SimSpeed TV, we've got another fantastic night of racing in store for you. The Epiroc Sprint Series Australia is going to Zandvoort for one of the later rounds of the season, and at an amazing circuit with an awful lot of history in global motorsports. Zandvoort is a lot twistier than it once was, but the racing ability certainly heats up, especially in GTs. Reese Gardner here in the commentary box, and alongside me, David Haynes. David, we are coming towards the close of this championship, and after the round, the exhibition round we had at Bathurst on Saturday, the drivers are jumping straight back into it at another challenging circuit.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like the last round really wasn't that long ago, and that's because it wasn't. We are right back in the saddle once again, as you mentioned, here at Zandvoort. Championship is very, very close in this, really anyone's game between a couple of drivers still. And Zandvoort, I think, it's quite technical. It's kind of narrow. It's a little bit tight. I think the racing will be very, very close around here as well.
Yeah, I certainly think that as well. The first couple of times up on the timesheets, and we take a look at the weather settings for this race. It's a pretty warm track there with some nice cool air temperature and a little bit of southwest wind, which will spice things up a bit for the drivers. Pretty clear out there in terms of clouds, so the track should heat up nicely.
Yep, indeed. As you see there, sitting around 43 degrees Celsius or so at the moment. Sort of a middle-length circuit here. Not quite as short as something like Laguna Seca, but not as long as Mount Panorama or even Spa or Le Mans. So, got a 45-minute race, as we typically do have around here. And with a 50% fuel limitation, The drivers, we do all expect to need a pit stop. What we've seen happen very frequently of late in this championship is a safety car coming out if there's an incident, really shaking up when we would have otherwise expected the pit stops to be taken. I think the drivers need to be on their game with the strategy, and if there is a safety car, know what their fuel numbers are, to know what the correct course of action is, to react quickly, make the most of that opportunity. We've seen drivers like Ross Rizzo and like others make huge moves up the field by just timing their pit stop correctly and being clever with their fuel.
Yeah, and the pit stops themselves are going to be interesting as well, because Zandvoort's pit entry is a little interesting compared to other tracks of its stature. It's all the way at the end of the start-finish straight, and it's got a bit of a tight entry, so the drivers will need to be careful of that as well. And also the curbs around the circuit. It seems tempting to clobber a lot of these curbs, but they can very easily unsettle your car.
Yeah, exactly. You can see coming through the first bend there for Ross Rizzo that the inside curve there, you really can't touch it. It's very, very tall, very, very steep indeed. And see Rizzo jumping over a couple of the curbs. And then we did see another driver using that pit entry, and it is exactly as you mentioned, Reese, that quite a difficult little tight chicane entry there. If you come in too hot, you'll risk more than just holding your box for speed in the pit lane. You'll risk hitting the wall if your entry speed is too quick. The entry to that pit lane there. So if we see a lot of green flag pit stops, that will definitely be something to look out for. The chicane at the pit entry with Armco barriers very, very close to either side.
Very close to either side. Looking at the timesheets in the last few minutes of this practice session, John Peasnick currently sitting in second. We're right on board with him. Take a little tour around the start-finish section of Zandvoort. Times seem pretty close in this warm-up session. The drivers have had quite some time worth of qualifying in order to get laps in, secure their places on the grid. So we haven't got very long until we're going green flag racing on the Dutch coast. And watching Peasnick go around here in this last half a minute, you can see the severe rise and fall of the track, especially here in the first sector. These turns are almost flat out, a little bit of braking just to keep the front end nice and loaded, and then through Shivlak, this amazing fast right-hander, you'll see a lot of moves going on around there, I would gather. But the session comes to a close, and we'll go through the start grid after this message from our sponsor.
With Epiroc, I've had the opportunity to work internationally, study and develop my skill set. This is what inspires me.
Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. The starting grid then for this round of Sprint Series Australia, Alexander Bird starts on pole position. Ross Rizzo alongside him for Trick Sim Sports. John Peasnick in the Ferrari is third. Trent Thomas making it 3 Trick cars in the top 4. Luis Paulo Gallon rounding out the top 5. Michael Healy starts from 6th place. Bo Albert puts his Altus Esports machine up into 7th. Danny Davison rounds out the top 8.
9th place is Bo Albert's Altus teammate Zach Hanlon, who's still in with a sniff of the championship, so he needs to gain some positions from there from 9th. He'll be along the same row as Martin Silvassi from Trick Sim Sports. Behind them, Neil Pearson and Cameron Dance. Behind that, another Trick driver in Scott Solosky and Adam Briggs of DPR Racing in 14th there. And then the next row behind is comprised of Sam Sutton and Darren Lobb.
Coming up to 17th place, we've got Reese Keane, also for DPR Racing. Cameron Stubber lines up in 18th position for Exto Gaming. Daniel Misdale and David Mulhall make it the last row in the top 20. Jake Maloney starts from 21st for Trans-Tasman Racing. Richard Hunter 22nd. Benjamin Johnson and Mia Ott making up row 12. I'd be interested to see how Ott goes starting outside the top 20.
Yep, definitely a driver we've seen move up through the field in some previous races, and the remainder of the grid, our 30 cars that are going to take the start here potentially, is Andrew Mogridge, Alex Court, Josh Pervine, John Nikolaev, and then the final row there, Hayden Benefield and Sean Reed.
And that is your field, 30 cars, 30 GTE machines making their way around Circuit Park Zandvoort. I'm looking forward to this round of the series because we don't go to Zandvoort all that often in many of the series we race at. So, especially in a field like this, looks like there's some interesting times ahead. It's very tight, but very fast.
Yep, indeed, and it's got some pretty challenging corners, especially, I'm thinking of the last two, if I'm honest. They're deceptively tricky. There's still a little bit of a landmine out in the gravel trap in the exit there, so that can put damage on your car if you go out too wide, and the limit of where the track ends and where the dirt and the grass starts. You need to use all of the track to be quick, but you use a little bit too much out there, which is tempting to do, and it can have disastrous consequences.
Yeah, tempting indeed. That double right to finish off the lap, you can easily come unstuck there. But also, I'm interested in this section of the circuit they're coming up to now. Fast right-hander after Shivlak. It's misleading because it's a bit tighter than it looks, and then you're still turning, then you got to start braking down into the lower reaches of third, maybe high second gear for this right-hander, which it's very easy to overload the front tires and understeer off, which is not good because flow around this part of the circuit incredibly important. It's actually surprisingly wide through here.
Yeah, that section of the circuit, you're correct there. We do see a lot of side-by-side racing through these couple of corners here, because how wide it is, you can kind of keep some momentum around the outside of the right-hander, which then puts you into the inside of the left-hander, and then you come all the way on the run down here towards, I think is sometimes called Audi corner, down the end of this little straight here. And that's another interesting little overtaking spot, because again, you want to be to the right-hand side there to try and overtake. If you don't get entirely clear, that puts you around the outside of this quick banked corner. There's a lot of potential for someone who's being passed to really defend and do drivers to battle side by side for a couple of corners in a row.
Yeah, indeed. It's a faster exit than it looks as well. You can really get on the throttle early out of there. And then through these final two corners, the track narrows up again, and those curbs beckon for you to use them, but gravel and grass awaits if you push a little bit too far. And then this final corner, in a lot of cars, it's a lift, maybe feathering the throttle through here. The exit from this corner is so very important because you run down to Tarzan. The first corner is defined at this spot. So then, Sprint Series Australia at Zandvoort. It's time for the green flag to be ready. The pace car jumps on in. Alexander Bird immediately goes. The green flag came very quick there. I don't think many of the drivers were expecting it so soon. Bird has got a really good gap over Rizzo coming into turn one. Piesnik has a look, but he stays behind for now. Stuck on the outside, Trent Thomas, and Luis Paulo Gallon makes his way through in the Ford GT through the S's section now for the first time. Bird maintaining a good gap, some side-by-side running, and we got a spinner up ahead. Trent Thomas had a half spin, and there's more problems. Thomas is around. We've got a car on its roof. We've got more cars coming by the wayside. A car beside Trent Thomas had some wheel spin. We're going to get a caution here, David. It was a bit of a chaotic start further back in the field.
Yeah, indeed. Zach Hanlon was non-stop excitement on that start. He was all wide coming across the line at the start of the race. And we see this here on board Scott Solowski, and he sees his trick teammate in front have a bit of a half spin. Then they try and go 3 wide there in that rather narrow section of the circuit. It just wasn't quite room for Zach Hanlon on the outside. He got tagged. You can see here on his run down towards the first corner, they were 2 wide, 3 wide. He survived all of that. And then they come around to Hugenholzbocht, which is the left-hand hairpin up here, and you'll see what happens is he's on the outside of 2 trick cars on the exit of the corner here. Just isn't quite spaced, and that sends him into a slide. He then collects another car. It's pinball between the Armco and that narrow section of the circuit, with 30 cars taking the start, and that incident happening, well inside the top 10.
Yeah, exactly, and I can't say I blame Kozlowski for that, because Thomas was coming onto the track in front of them just on the exit, and of course he was still making the turn. He had to shift his line slightly, which unfortunately put him straight into Piesnik, Hanlon, my apologies. And of course that's the chain reaction that happened, so very unfortunate to start off this race. I was interested to see how Trent Thomas would be able to go further up the front of the field, but now Alexander Bird and Ross Rizzo don't have a trick car to join them on the podium for now. John Piesnik runs in third. Sam Sutton making his way up into 12th position as Darren Lobb falls down the timing sheets. He's had an issue as well. We'll have to wait and see what happens to the likes of Trent Thomas, David Mulhall, and the like that were involved in that incident out of Hugenholtz.
Yeah, exactly. Couple of cars that have really dodged some of that wreckage, gained some spots. One of them does not look like Daniel Misdale, but Alex Court, for example, gained 7 spots. Sean Reed gained 8. Take another replay while we're under caution here and see what has gone on. Daniel Misdale, it was a slightly separate incident that he was involved with. And in fact, you can see just in the background of that shot, the other incident going off. And of course, you see just 4 wide there, Zach Hanlon in the bottom of the picture.
Oh, man.
We're looking for what happened to Misdale. Gets rear-ended as the field concertina up into turn 1, and then it's 3 wide here. So there's a couple of incidents on that first lap, if we're honest. So, yeah, there.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's unfortunate. It seems like there's a lot of space, and that turn seems tight, that right-hander, but you can carry a lot of speed through it, and running side by side through there is almost impossible. So those guys, more unfortunate victims of the lap 1 chaos. But we got to remember, as the field is under safety car, the timer is still running. So these guys would have prepared for potentially a 45-minute green race, but with this long safety car period at the start, we're about to go 5 minutes race time, and we barely completed 2 laps. So the guys will have to shift their fuel numbers slightly.
Yeah, indeed they will, but we won't see anyone not needing to pit because of this time under yellow. Certainly still expecting a pit stop out of everyone. We've seen in previous rounds that maybe even with 35 or so minutes to go, the guys were really struggling to go to the end on fuel from there. We did not see many drivers come into the lane at the end of lap 1. They barely did half a lap under green, full consumption running. Take yet another replay. John Nicolay, the engine has died, and he's come to a halt. The entry to the pit lane there, or he's pulled it over at that point. Yeah, that car really struggling to get going on the way into the lane for the DPR racing car. So a couple of casualties. Stuck on. Anything's possible, but a couple casualties on the first lap. John Nicolay, Daniel Misdale, and of course a lot of positions lost by Trent Thomas. There's probably a few other walking wounded out there as well.
Yeah, undoubtedly, and there'll probably be a few more again by the time we get to race end. There's one of them, Scott Kozlowski, missing his bonnet still. A very substandard looking trick BMW there. Nikolaev is back moving again with a lot of right hand down, so maybe that had something to do with it. That car, an awful lot of damage as we see Zach Hanlon peeling into the pits. I would gather a few people will be trying to take advantage of this safety car period, get a bit of extra fuel in the car. We see a huge line of cars coming in, all of them to get, I presume, some damage repaired. All of them have battle scars of some sort. Maloney, Thomas, Reese Keane. We got the likes of Sean Reed, Mia Ott, Hayden Benefield, Scott Kozlowski, who we're riding on board with. So pit lane, a flurry of activity. And the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap, so we'll be getting some green flag running soon.
Yeah, if you're in the back half of the field, nothing to lose from coming in, adding a bit of fuel, and then cutting that time off your next pit stop. And of course, there was maybe as many as 10 drivers who really wanted to come into the pit lane just to get their car fixed. so that they'll have pace to go till the end. It's good that we're going to get green flag racing once again, and you can see that iRacing Porsche safety car. The lights on the roof are off, and I mean the roof and not the Porsche, but I do mean the Porsche. It's confusing like that, but indeed we'll be going racing soon to two trick cars in the top 10, your top 3 in the same order as they qualified, but from there on down, just about everyone else has been rearranged of some sort in that first half a lap of green flag racing that we got.
Yeah, it looks like some of the only positions that are still the same as they were are the top 3. Alex Bird, Ross Rizzo and John Piesnik, with no dramas in that first period. So they'll be getting ready to go again very soon. Just coming up to the, I guess you could say, the infield section of the circuit. And what we've got to remember is the fact that the green flag goes so late, because pit lane entry very close to the start-finish line. These guys will be almost at a crawl when the safety car comes into the pits. So hanging back from it, I don't think will do much good.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Alexander Bird will decide to do, how he'll restart the race. I'm sure he's had plenty of time right now to think about it, and he might very well be coordinating with his teammate in second place there, Ross Rizzo, so the two of them might be able to get a bit of a jump away from Piesnik. Bird has his own championship to think about, and he might like Rizzo to play rear gunner, but Rizzo will be saying, no, please don't use me as a sacrificial lamb against John Piesnik here in third place, who's Ferrari. He's been very quick since he switched to that model.
Yeah, he has. Originally, John Piesnik was in the BMW with lots of the field, but he's fallen out of love with it and has gone back to his old mid-engined previous loves. So it's worked out well for him. He has forfeited all of his championship points, however. So he is just going for bragging rights at this stage. So Alexander Bird needs to watch out, and they need to be able to race smart. They'll be getting another opportunity very, very soon when the safety car peels in, and we will actually get an opportunity to see how the race develops.
So functionally 36 minutes to go. Through the final corner they are here. Bird is still right up behind that safety car. He's not let it run away a little bit and backed the field up. He's right with it. They're tightly packed, all in a line. You can see the pit entry on the left-hand side of the screen there. The pace car will dive into it now. What's Bird going to do, Reese? Green flag.
Yep, green flag went right away once again, and once again Bird got the best start of them all. Luis Paulo Gallon briefly having to protect the inside there from Bo Albert. Have a look at Michael Healy trying to make it work around the outside. Nothing doing there. Almost contact between himself and Bo Albert. Oh, and again, Michael Healy not willing to let that position go easily. He's tagged Albert in the back, and he is offline there, fighting with Cameron Dance then in the Slick Sim Sports Art Car livery. Albert just getting ahead for now. Bit of side-by-side running behind them as well, but this looks like a much cleaner start than what we initially saw.
Yep, indeed, for the second time of asking, we're away, and we are still green at the halfway point of the lap. Watching this densely packed battling still going on, though. Dance has got himself there behind Bo Albert. Dance has gained 5 spots since the start of the race. So he's doing good stuff in the side-by-side here between Martin Silvassi, and looks like Neil Pearson and Adam Briggs in there as well.
Yeah, Silvassi went up the inside of Pearson, a
wide.
couple corners back. Yeah, that's no good. It hasn't affected his exit all that much, but you don't want to do too much of that. Silvassi just easing off the brakes there. Pearson overshooting that corner slightly, but he's managed to keep the forward momentum going for now. Get the feeling he might be a bit of a cork in the bottle here in the DPR BMW, because Silvassi is bearing down on him still. Pearson, a bit of damage showing up on the front quarter of that car, and side by side through the final turn. Easy as you like. Pearson getting the better exit there on the outside. Have a look at Adam Briggs here behind. He's going to try and go up between the two of them. 3 wide down the start-finish straight. And Briggs just gets ahead into Tarzan. Will he be able to maintain that momentum on the outside? No. Martin Silvassi maintaining the momentum, getting up onto the racing line. and he's managed to get himself a nice gap in front of those people now. Sam Sutton also following him through.
Sam Sutton, a pretty big gainer out of all of that. What an ambitious move by Adam Briggs. Almost kind of sad it didn't come off, but very glad it did not end in too much carnage there. Now he's backing up some other guys here. A lot of DPR cars packed in this section right here. Briggs, Lobb, Pearson, all of that racing against each other just outside of the top 10.
Yeah, looks like it. Martin Silvassi starting to lose some ground to Sam Sutton as we take a look at Zach Hanlon making a move. He's one of the guys on a recovery drive, and so is this guy Cameron Stubber up the inside of Danny Davison there in the Ford. Remember, Davison started in 8th place, so he's lost a few positions off the start. He's fighting to keep them. Good cover there by Cameron Stubber versus Danny Davison.
Yep, indeed. So those two swap positions here. Sam Sutton, we saw how quick he was at Bathurst in this BMW. He didn't qualify quite as high as we maybe would have thought. He's looking very, very menacing until he runs out a little bit too wide, ruins his momentum out of the final corner. But up until that point, he was right there and trying to chase Martin Silvassi. Bit of a gap has opened between 7th place Dance and 8th place Silvassi. Silvassi's starting to build up a tiny bit of a train behind him. Not all of that's been his fault. They've been battling side by side very hard. But Sutton, definitely one of the drivers we could expect to see move up through the field. The same is true for Zach Hanlon, who is 13th right now. The highest placed car to have taken a pit stop. He got his car repaired and put a little bit of fuel on board. So when it comes to deeper in this race and everyone else has to pit, Hanlon might have a pit stop 2 or 3 seconds quicker than everyone else around him. He is losing time in traffic here behind Pearson. So the likes of Bird, Rizzo and Peasnick gallop away down the road. Hanlon already 10 seconds off the lead of the race. Big slide. Is that going to go all the way around and will he catch it? Too much curb indeed. And look at the train of cars going past him. He's lost easily 10 spots there.
That's a big shame there for Hanlon. Once again, those curbs I was talking about before, get a modem simulation replay of what happened there, and it is a nice big tempting curb to use at the corner after Shivlak. You can see Hanlon, he had the pace over Pearson, but just turns in a little bit too early, and bam, car gets unsettled over that bump.
Puts the thing on the lock stops to try and catch it, but it wasn't possible. In the end, he had to slam on the brakes to be able to catch the car, and that's when the whole train behind came through. So some of that hard work undone right on board. Once again, Davison's trying to get the move back on Cameron Stubber. He might have got 2 wheels on the dirty stuff on the exit, but he kept a lot of speed. Stubber still defend the inside a little bit, but I think you get away with that through turn 1 through Tarzan here because of the way the corner is slightly banked. That can also help you go around the outside there. It's a great corner for a little bit of battling and for a potential overtake. Obviously, Stubber and Davison making speed in different places in the different cars. Stubber got through, but has not gotten away from Davison, who's now still looking pretty menacing.
Yeah, looked to me like either Stubber had a bad exit from the final turn, or the Ford is lacking in straight line speed compared to Davison's BMW. I mean, we do know that the BMW has a big bit of power under that big boy bonnet, but we'll have to wait and see what the lap times are like. Meanwhile, here's Silvassi versus Sutton continuing on. They've broken away from the DPR pair behind, and Sam Sutton running almost the same lap time as Martin Silvassi last time by. I wonder where he might try to stick a move, or will he stick behind and save a bit more fuel?
Both of those are options for him. I think he's going to try and set up the run out of the final corner a little bit cleaner than he did earlier in the race, though. Someone else who's going to try and do that, Luis Paulo Gallon, we see a replay here, and he had, who was that? Healy behind him. It must have been a mistake somewhere from Gallon, because Healy is a couple car lengths back here, but he gets through somewhere around here. That might have been a slowdown penalty from Gallon.
Yeah.
Did he take too much of that curb? And then he runs out wide. What does he do? He has to slow down Healy. Gets the message eventually. They got close there, but Healy grabs that spot away from Gallon, who is obviously pushing the limits of the allowable track surface out there, trying to find some speed. Sutton hasn't been able to get past Silvassi though while we were watching that, but he is still very, very close.
Yeah, you can see this this is a little opportunity for slipstreaming up the back of the circuit. It's not really a straight, but it's a long, flat-out section where you can get a little bit of a draft on your rival. And then, of course, you come into this back section of the circuit, very twist-steep, not many straight-line sections between the corners. Silvassi doing a better job than Sutton at the moment of navigating those corners on the racing line. It's just very tempting to lunge into those corners and use your fronts, make the car dance on them, but you can't really do that around here. Having a lot of front-end grip, particularly later on in the race, will help you.
Indeed, I can imagine your front left tyre copping quite a beating around here with the corners like the fast final corners and also through Tarzan and that sector you mentioned. Zach Hanlon is battling with Scott Kozlowski. And
wow,
both of these guys could have been in the top 5 potentially. Here they are, scrapping it well down the order. A lot of cars in front of them. They're going to have to get through. Bo Albert, one of the first people to try and go for a green flag stop. Is this an interesting strategy to get out of traffic, or is he had a bit of a problem there? Going to have a little bit of a look. Is the go for Bo Albert. Like I mentioned earlier, there is a bit of a landmine on the exit of that penultimate corner. He hasn't gone out there. It's not damaged there.
I just overcooked it at the...
He does. And Cam Dance does a great job to avoid him, but Bo Albert has decided the damage there means now is a great time to pit. And so
well, it happened at an opportune time, didn't it? He was in the right place.
Yeah, in a way it did. So he hasn't lost too much time from that, but it has forced him into taking a green flag stop, maybe earlier than he would have wanted. It's going to put him down a long way into traffic, and he's joined by his Altus Esports teammate, Zach Hanlon, who's also gone for a pit stop right now. Presumably he saw that line of cars in front of him and thought, I am not really going to be able to make a way through these guys.
Yeah, well, speaking of long lines of cars, this is one headed up by Reese Keane for DPR. Jake Maloney behind him in the TTR BMW. We've also got Mogridge, Mulhall, Solovsky, Hunter, and Ott in this group of cars. And a little bit too slow. Off the apex was David Mulhall. So Solovsky ended up backing up Richard Hunter, who was open to an attack from Ott behind him. Mia Ott trying to go through on the outside. She's managing to do it. There we go, inside line in the Sim Racing Channel Ferrari.
And that's what I mentioned on the parade lap there, that you can kind of go around the outside of the first section of that corner, comes the inside for the next. Great battles can happen there, because whether you're on the left side or the right side, if you can get a bit of momentum, you can get the pass done either way around. But
Kozlowski spun. Kozlowski spun on the start-finish straight. Something's happened. Sorry to interrupt. It looks like he might have done the same thing Bo Albert did. Yeah, he got on the throttle just a little bit too soon out of the final turn, and on the bumps over the grass, the car just lost it. Here is the replay of what happened. You'll see he just gets on a bit too early, and then the car gets unsettled. He gets it back onto the circuit, but overcorrects, and around he goes.
He tried really, really hard to hold on to that. In the end, just couldn't. It was too bumpy out there. He was going too fast. It is very, very quick through that final corner sometimes. He is on board from Mia Ott. Which way is the car in front going to spin? You just don't know. Made the correct call to go to the right-hand side. Maybe had to roll out of the throttle, but definitely got cleanly and safely through there, thankfully.
Yes, indeed. Well, we look once again at the battle for 7th place between Silvassi and Sutton. In front of these guys, the top 6 is reasonably spaced out. Bird with I'd say about a second gap over his teammate Ross Rizzo. Same for Peasnick, Healy, Gallon and Dance. They're all pretty evenly spaced. So this is the closest battle furthest up the field at the moment. And you see Silvassi already going for that defensive line. Sutton, interestingly, not following him in that draft.
They do get very, very close to the middle of the corner. Felt that maybe the mid-corner speed was a bit less for Sutton there, but they got a good exit. Again, those two are both very evenly matched. Not too many mistakes from Silvassi. Means that Sutton is sticking right there. We see a couple more guys jumping in right now for some green flag pit stops. They're definitely within the window where they can put in the fuel and get to the end here as we approach halfway, maybe in a lap's time or so. But certainly if you are buried deep in the traffic and finding it hard to pass, and if you get into the pit stop now, punch in a couple of quick laps in clean air, by the time it's your opponent's time to pit, you will hopefully have jumped those cars that you know you can do quicker laps than, but you just haven't found a way past. Sutton does exactly what you mentioned earlier, Reese. Comes in a bit too hot, front washes out, and he loses a lot of time.
Yeah, that's where Silvassi has a bit of an insurance policy, I guess, because Sutton is pushing a bit too hard and using up that front left quite a bit. Here's the view on board from I believe that's Maloney trying to make his way past Keane. Nothing happening there, but well defended on the inside, and Keane got a much better exit. But you can see Maloney trying to waste as little time as possible, making a move now. He needs to move forward.
Yeah, indeed. So we'll ride on board out through the final 2 corners, and you got to be careful how much of the curbing you take through some of these areas. You see Maloney turns in a lot earlier. Keane with a later apex, hoping to get the throttle open earlier. No, it's a later apex to take the pit entry. So he's decided it's not worth battling. It's time to come in and get my green flag stop, followed in by Mia Ott. Now there's quite a few drivers, as I say now, at the halfway point of the race in 10 seconds. We're thinking split the race in half, get out of some traffic, and get my pit stop done and dusted. And in the potentially likely occurrence of a safety car later in the race, the drivers who are already fueled to get to the end may well benefit.
They very well may, but safety car certainly always a possibility. Ross Rizzo has done a fantastic job maintaining second place there, maintaining the gap to John Piesnik, who is flying the flag for JP Racing in his Ferrari in the middle of a trick sandwich at the moment, with an extra slice of bread on the top in the form of Alexander Bird. But he seems pretty safe there in the podium positions at the moment. It'll all come down to pit stop times between these guys. It'll all be about who has done the best job of saving fuel. I would put my money on Ross Rizzo because he's at the draft of his teammate for the whole race, and he's good at fuel saving anyway. Meanwhile, Bird has spent all of his time with no draft at all. Here's a battle between Alex Court and Benjamin Johnson. Meanwhile, these guys in a fun little fight.
And Jake Maloney, as we saw take a pit stop, has come out right behind these guys as well. So here he is, fueled to the end, catching up onto the back of these 2 guys. As you mentioned, a couple more cars from in front of him, though, jump into the pit lane. That one there, Alex Court, removes himself from the battle. Now Maloney following Johnson, and he was 1.2 seconds quicker on that last lap than that car in front of him. But we've seen that 1.2 seconds a lap quicker does not necessarily mean it's going to be easy for you to pass around here. The straights just aren't quite long enough in some circumstances, and the drive out of some of these corners very, very tricky. See it once again, Maloney, great exit out of that corner, but this straight is not a straight, and it's into a corner that's not a particularly heavy braking zone, not an easy passing place, pretty easily defended right there.
Yeah, and it's all about that mid-corner momentum, especially through the first sector of the circuit. You could see Maloney was getting much better entries, and he's able to maintain a beautiful amount of momentum here and jam it up the inside, but I don't think he's far up enough on Johnson. He's going to have the inside for the next corner. Johnson, we got to remember, is carrying a bit of damage as well, so that'll be affecting his pace. He's doing a fantastic job of staying ahead of Maloney at the moment, but he's just left the door open down here for this braking zone, and I think this is going to be all she wrote. Jake Maloney through on Benjamin Johnson, but valiantly defended.
Indeed, it was not easy for Maloney whatsoever, despite that speed advantage that we mentioned. So Maloney does get past there, but that's one of the risks he was taking with the earlier pit stop. Is he lost quite a bit of time in that battle compared to some of the guys he was battling before he took his pit stop. And now Johnson dives right into the pit lane. Zach Hanlon in the pits there. And
looks like he's retired. He's out of the car. He's out of the car, unfortunately. So I think that might be day done for Zach Hanlon. Real shame. He was a contender for the top 5. But drivers like Martin Silvassi and Sam Sutton will profit from that. Sutton still not able to make any real headway on Silvassi here. It seems like Silvassi's tyre life is a little bit better than Sutton's at the moment. He's taken a bit better care of those bits of rubber joining him to the virtual racetrack. So Sutton, I reckon, will be thinking about potentially trying to jump Silvassi in the pits. That'll be probably his only chance of getting by for 7th.
Yeah, no doubt. And in fact, as we've been watching sort of Sutton and Silvassi battle, Briggs and Lobb behind have got much closer. Johnson on his outlap here after the pit stop. What has gone on for him? The damage on the right-hand side, I think, has been joined by a bit of damage on the left-hand side. We'll see it going side by side down into Hugenholtz. Cops maybe just the tiniest of taps from, I think that must have been Mia Ott.
Yeah.
And sent Johnson into a half spin, cost a lot of time. Don't think it's done actually too much damage, but Ott has tried to stay around the outside, is down the inside there, and might have just pushed out a tiny bit wider than Johnson was expecting. I don't see anything particularly foul play by either driver there, but it's just, again, that's where we saw the incident on turn 1. That section of the track there, quite slow, quite narrow, and the walls are very, very close as well.
Yeah, it was almost a fantastic move from Mia Ott, but unfortunately just a little bit too hard into Hugenholtz. Here's Mogridge and Mulhall, meanwhile. You get a really good view from that blimp cam of the kind of banking and elevation change around this circuit. You see Mulhall pushing very hard into Hugenholtz, but losing out on the exit. That's the thing you got to be wary of. Going into these turns too hard, overworking your tyres, trying to get an advantage, it's going to turn into a big disadvantage as the tyres come down and the race goes on. Speaking of track temperature, the track has actually cooled slightly. It's at 42 degrees now, but these guys haven't seen much of a difference in terms of pace.
No, still most of our leaders about half a second adrift of their best laps of the race. They might get a little bit quicker after the pit stop if that gives them an opportunity to just cool the tyres down a little bit. But yeah, not setting lap records right now. We do look to Cameron Stubber and Danny Davison. Not for the first time. These two guys battling it out on track once again. Stubber, a lot more speed into the final corner. Davison maybe gets a little bit more drive off the exit. I've been battling all race long, these two, it seems.
Yeah, seems like it, definitely. And Davison has gained on Stubber in the last few laps. Neither of these guys have pitted yet. It just looks like Davison is coming on strong in the latter half of the stint. Stubber, though, doing a sterling job holding that Ford there in 12th. You can see Davison, I think, just doing very well in the first sector with those fast entries. The BMW seems to like that, whereas the Ford, you go easy into the turns, you maintain that mid-corner momentum, and you can see Stubber just gaining slightly through the faster corners, but Davison will come right back at him in this stop-start section of the track.
Yeah, indeed, and it's a smaller displacement as well from the engine in the Ford GT, and sometimes it can definitely feel like it just doesn't punch as hard out of the corners, but then down the straights it's pretty similar because it sits lower, sits slightly more aerodynamically, so it just doesn't launch hard out of the corners like potentially the BMW and maybe even the Ferrari do. The Ford just a little bit more focused on the corner speeds and the aerodynamics at the expense of torque and displacement.
Well, he's done a good enough job throughout the various turns of this Zandvoort circuit to not have much pressure from Davison behind him. Hasn't made any real gains on the start-finish straight. As we're hearing, Ross Rizzo has made a mistake. He's lost 4/10 on his teammate Alex Bird out in front. So something has happened to Ross Rizzo. Doesn't seem like it's hurt him all that much. He's managed to get his momentum back very nicely. It looks like it happened in the middle of Tarzan, just a little over rotation at the apex for Ross Rizzo. A small mistake, but it can certainly compound. And we're hearing Maloney is back in the pits as well.
Yeah, for his second stop, and it's been quite a long one this time. That might be a retirement, unless it's a lot of damage and he has not had an opportunity to fix it again. Looks like 31? No, I think he's retiring that car, unfortunately, for Maloney, which is a shame because he was running pretty well, involved in some interesting little battles. We'd given him some airtime, but not going perfectly for him. There's a great little battle here, though, a bit deeper in the field here. Cam Dance, I think, starting to drop off his pace a little bit. He was slow last lap, That's let Silvassi and Sutton catch right up as well. These two still battling as well, like they have since almost the start of the race. Silvassi now getting a little bit more look at one of the few Porsches. That is an Altus car upside down. Bo Albert, his day goes from bad to worse to
Mia
worse.
Ott too.
Mia Ott involved as well. It might be awkward in the SimSpeed chat later tonight. We'll see. Though. Has brought out a caution very, very late in the race. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at what happened here. It looks like Richard Hunter will work out to be the race leader. My goodness, Albert was already stopped.
Yeah, he was already stationary, facing the wrong way, and Mia Ott's come around the blind corner there. But Albert's done that all by himself, unfortunately. Too hot over the crest, unsettles the car. A couple of tires on the grass. One car goes past, two cars go past, three cars go past cleanly. And then it just takes one. The two come together, and that Porsche really does look like an upside-down turtle, unable to get back onto its feet. Something about the shape. And
that's a mental image that I needed.
It's a shame he's not driving for Team Tortuga, whose Porsche 911 RSR livery is a turtle and would be very, very apt in that position. Were it not for the fact that in the Geodesic GoPro Championship, Robert L. Harris is battling for the championship and would never want that to happen to him. But yeah, under caution now, 12 minutes to go. We will get green again, I imagine, before the end of this 12 minutes, but it will be a dash to the end. And like I said, everyone who's already taken their pit stop is going to benefit big time from this. So guys who haven't pitted yet, probably gonna pit and get to the end. This opens a huge number of what ifs.
It certainly does. The pace car still not out. It's getting ready to pick up the eventual race leader. Alexander Burgess making his way through the penultimate turn as the safety car enters the circuit. It won't pick him up. I think it'll be waiting there for a little bit. But Alexander Bird taking his time, definitely not rushing to go to the pits. He's actually avoiding the pits. So, my mistake. Pit road is closed at the moment. We've got to remember, not a manual safety car.
Fuel conservation right now. Alexander Bird, he was so slow that pace car had to wait so long because Bird is not rushing around whatsoever. He had basically the clutch in the whole time out of the final corner till turn one. He is trying desperately to get to the end of this race without needing a pit stop. We've had 2 cautions now, and what Bird is trying to do is get to the end on the fuel he started the race with. It is not a compulsory pit stop in this series. What it is it's a fuel limitation. It normally means even with 1 caution period, 1 safety car, the drivers still need to pit. Now that we've had 2, Bird has all of his lucky dice in his hand and he is rolling them and rolling them hard.
Yeah, rolling the car too, in a forward direction off the throttle, I should clarify. But a lot of strategy implications here with this safety car. I am thinking about the likes of Scott Kozlowski and Trent Thomas down the field. This'll help them out a bit, I reckon.
Okay, Anthony Winkleman, if you're watching, okay, here's an idea for you. Ross Rizzo pushes Alexander Bird around behind the safety car while Bird just leaves the clutch in for 3 laps. Don't do that. That would be poor sportsmanship. But I'm just saying, the Trek have some very interesting opportunities here. But they're trying to gamble hard on the strategy. And the one thing they have going in their favor is 3 cars in the top 4. They can split their strategies. They can try and sacrifice 1 driver. They've got all manner of options here to try and get Alexander Bird that win for his championship. If that's what they want to do, they have many, many options in front of them, I think.
Yeah, they definitely do. Richard Hunter, we ride on board. He was the first car that pitted all the way back under that first caution period. He sits in 16th at the moment, but we reckon he's got a good chance of taking up the race lead once the majority of the cars in front of him come in. And Trent Thomas, meanwhile, the first car that pitted under green flag conditions. So he's basically the car who's going to be at or near the front of this train. The waiting is killing me.
Yeah, so does Alexander Bird have the fuel to get to the end? He really, really hopes so, it seems. Does Richard Hunter likely, we would think so. Does Trent Thomas? Almost guaranteed. So whatever the fuel situation ends up, those are our three, I guess, most likely candidates for the win. Bird would dearly hope that he can save enough fuel. Hunter would think he probably has enough. The first person we know is confident about having enough fuel to get to the end is Trent Thomas, but he's all the way down in 19th. When will the pit lane open and who will dive on for it? Bird is looking towards it, but he is not committed to it yet. Does he commit to the pit entry? Alexander Bird, your leader, does. Rizzo follows him in. Peasnick stays out. John Peasnick with the biggest gamble of the lot. The JPR Racing driver thinks he can get to the end without a pit stop in this race.
Interesting. I don't know if he'll be able to make it work. I mean, the Ferrari does sip the fuel a bit, especially when you're following another car. Richard Hunter went back into the pits, and Alexander Bird's just taken his stop and come out alongside his teammate Trent Thomas, who is, Alex Bird has actually managed to make it out ahead of Trent Thomas. He has not lost any time under that stop at all. Barely spent any time at a standstill. His pit stop was 3.6 seconds.
Wow, Alexander Bird has been very, very lucky there. How quickly he's been able to make that pit stop and just how slow the pace car was as well. He might have had just the tiniest bit of help from Trent Thomas, who had the opportunity to back up the field a little bit behind him and let some of the trick guys who had to pit come through as well. And I'm not accusing him of doing anything too malicious there. I'm just saying this is the kind of thing you can do when you've got that many cars running so highly. You know, once you have enough cars in the game, then that's to your benefit.
Certainly is. Michael Healy back in 15th position with just up ahead of him a flashing Sam Sutton. I'm interested to see what happens here. Someone must have a black flag, and Silvassi's actually gone by. Maybe Sutton was directed to let him by.
Yeah, not sure. A few of the drivers having to swap positions behind the pace car here because, when we see the cars are coming along as some are exiting the pit lane, but under safety car where no overtaking is allowed, you've got to see whose nose was in front at the safety car line to say what is the order behind the safety car. Certainly Peasnick in first, taking a massive gamble on the fuel, has Bird just 2 positions behind, who does have the fuel to get to the end. Hayden Benefield as well, I think probably with the fuel to go to the end as well. He is up 27 positions from where he started on the grid. Benefield from the final row of the grid in 29th position, now looking at a spot potentially on the podium. That's very, very provisionally right now because he's got 3 hungry-looking trick cars right behind him. I do see that the lights are potentially out the safety car. 5 minutes left. We'll go racing for a thrilling little potentially 3-lap dash to the end.
Yeah, so lap time around here is 1 minute 30 and up. So yeah, it looks like it'll be 3 laps to go when the safety car comes in. Cannot wait for this finish in Epiroc Sprint Series Australia. It's been another intriguing race of strategy gambles. Will John Peasnick be able to hold on for race victory, or will he have to put up the white flag? Fuel save will come into the pits one last time in these last 5 minutes. What about Hayden Benefield as well? Will he be able to hold off the charge of Alexander Bird, Trent Thomas and Ross Rizzo? We'll find out very soon. The safety car will travel down the start-finish straight, pulling into the pits at the very last second, and then I would presume John Peasnick will go instantly. You can see everyone's trying to sort themselves out so they have a good view coming down to Tarzan. Green flag is out. John Peasnick has managed to get away, but Hayden Benefield has timed that start perfectly. He's going to draw up alongside the JP Racing driver into turn 1. Diving to the inside is a Porsche. That looks like Cameron Dance, and there's a car off at Tarzan. Josh Pervine, unfortunately, to the inside, and it looks like also Benjamin Johnson. Alexander Bird makes his way past Hayden Benefield there. almost. And
too wide, Dance on the outside through Hugenholz blocked, and he's going to go side by side with Trent Thomas, who has his nose in front. Dance with his nose back in front, but I think this is going to be so close. Dance will just hold the inside into this long right-hand downhill
have a
here.
look at Trent Thomas.
Side by side, massive grip around the outside. Benefield touches one of the other trick cars. Everyone battling so hard in this 3-lap sprint to the end of this race.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got my names mixed up. Ross Rizzo with an incredible move around the outside on Hayden Benefield. Nearly turned into a spin. They had a slight bit of contact, but Hayden Benefield managing to let him by cleanly there. And Sam Sutton now. What can he do as side by side it is Cameron Dance and Hayden Benefield coming down into the final few turns. Trent Thomas trying to find his way past here. Will it be a dive at the penultimate turn? No. Thomas is leaving all of his momentum for the start-finish straight. Under 3 minutes to go now in the Epiroc Sprint Series Australia.
The hugest wiggle I've seen in my life. Now he goes side by side through the final corner. One of the trick cars is out in the grass. It is chaos everywhere. Cam Dance going to try and go around the outside into turn 1, into Tarzan on Hayden Benefield. He gets that done. So now it's Trent Thomas who's tucked up behind side by side Dance and Benefield. Hayden Benefield doing a great job, giving nothing away. Unfortunately, a lot of quick guys, they come together with Cam Dance. They're going to be Dance sideways through this very narrow section of the track. He's going to have to wait there, and that will be so painful.
Benefield! Oh no, Benefield, it's caused more problems. Benefield tried to get back onto the track there. And unfortunately, a couple of cars have been involved in that, a couple BMWs. There's cars at a standstill up at the track. Sam Sutton involved as well. We'll get a modem simulation replay of this. So Dance makes his way past Benefield, fair enough, but then Benefield gets straight into the back of Dance coming into the hairpin. Benefield goes slowly, makes contact with Gallon, gets off the circuit, obviously a bit rattled, and then, there we go. 2 BMWs, Sam Sutton, one of them, and that was just a very awkward position. 3 into 1 as a result of that. Martin Silvassi, a casualty too, but that's a real shame. Those guys were fighting for big positions out there. Time is almost up though, and Alexander Bird is chasing down John Peasnick here. We still don't know if Peasnick is going to have enough to get to the line at the end, but this is going to be the last lap of the race, and the top 3 are very close. Peasnick doesn't sound like he's saving fuel. It looks like he may have actually had enough in the car to manage to get home without stopping. We'll still have to wait and see. There's plenty of opportunities around Zandvoort to lift off just a bit early. But it looks like the trick cars don't have much of a response for him at the moment in these slower sections.
Peasnick at this point, he's basically just got to go all out and hope that car doesn't cough on the way to the finish line. He's quick, the car's light, but does he have enough fuel? The only car out there not to have pitted. Really gambling on having saved enough fuel behind the 2 safety cars that we had. There's only going to be just 3 or so more braking zones for John Peasnick before the end of the lap, halfway around the final lap, and he's showing no signs of slowing down. We all thought he was not going to have enough fuel.
We all did, but only 2 real straight line sections after this one. Only a few more turns. It looks like Bird is dropping back even further. It doesn't look like he and Rizzo are able to challenge John Peasnick at all in these final stages. So have they got enough fuel to get to the end? It looks like they'll go into formation flying. But John Peasnick, 1 corner to go for the JP Racing driver, switching to the Ferrari for Montreal. Didn't have the best showing at Bathurst, but now he has responded beautifully at Zandvoort, not visiting the pits once. John Peasnick takes victory at Zandvoort, and Alex Bird and Ross Rizzo complete the podium.
Indeed, we see a couple more cars coming to the finish line. A few battles remaining on the last lap in the dash to the finish line out that final corner, but not too many switching positions. One of our big gainers here, though. Alex Court has gained 19 positions after starting 28th on the grid. He finishes well inside the top 10. Another one of those drivers having a good race and taking a very early pit stop, and then being rather fortunate, I think, with the final safety car, letting him jump a bunch of cars and also make it to the end on just that 1 pit stop. So that was strategy, fuel saving, all sorts of all kinds for the whole race. Those safety cars really threw a spanner in the works of everyone's plans, and some people, like John Peasnick, are able to pick up the pieces and grab a good result.
For sure. He is out of fuel, is John Peasnick, so he only had half a lap, but fantastic fuel saving in the first safety car period and through those green flag stints to take victory. Let's take a look at the race results then. John Peasnick takes victory from Alexander Bird. Ross Rizzo completing the podium. Trent Thomas holding on for fourth place. He finishes where he started, as does Luis Paulo Gallon, who completes the top 5. Reese Keane up to 6th from 17th, and Alex Court, our biggest gainer in the field, 26th to 7th. Michael Healy finishes in 8th position for Trek.
9th place, Cameron Stubber. 10th place, another big gainer up 15 spots, is Andrew Mogbridge. Sneak into the top 10. 11th, Danny Davison, who we saw some great battles from. 12th, David Mulhall. 13th, Richard Hunter. 14th, Josh Pervine. 15th, Benjamin Johnson. And 16th is Adam Briggs.
Yeah, DPR Racing have a good race in the top half of this field. Cameron Dance finishes in 17th place. Scott Kozlowski in 18th. He has not had a good run at Zandvoort. Darren Lobb comes home in 19th position. Hayden Benefield finishes 20th in the end. Could have been a top 5 for him, but it all unraveled in the last couple of laps. Sean Reed and Sam Sutton, 21st and 22nd. Martin Silvasti classified behind Sutton at the end of it all, and John Nicolaife in 24th position.
Yep, and rounding out the remainder of the field, 2 laps down, Neil Pearson, and everyone after this is retirements. Mia Ott, 26th, Bo Albert, 27th. Those two coming together, unfortunately. Bo Albert ending up the Porsche Turtle. 28th, Jake Maloney, Zach Hanlon, another driver capping off a horrible night for Altus Esports, and Daniel Misdale, 17 laps down in the final position.
So a smaller field of 30 cars here at Zandvoort, but as we wait for drivers to come in for interviews, man, what a race it was. I'm very interested to hear what John Peasnick has to say about his strategy, and Alex Bird making that pit stop and timing it the exit very well. It'll be interesting to see what everyone has to say about that. But first, a message from our sponsor.
I appreciate that there's diversity in the workforce, and Australia is becoming a prominent influence in this area with 4 females on the management team. This is what inspires me.
Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. Let's talk to the top 3 then, starting off with our race winner, John Peasnick. John, my goodness, you did not take a pit stop. We were wondering if that kind of strategy would ever work in this championship, but in your hands, that Ferrari managed to do it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Very lucky to get away with it. Get away with that one. Obviously, everything just fell into place, and but I'll take it when I can. Obviously, everyone was saving fuel as much as possible from the first safety car because you never know what can go on. And yeah, like obviously, I saw everyone go in at the end there, and I don't know, the quick calculation I did in my head, I thought I could get home, and yeah, to be honest, it was comfortable at the end.
Yeah, definitely looked comfortable. The trick cars kind of fell off on the last lap. How intense was the fuel saving you were doing under those safety car periods? I mean, we were joking about Rizzo pushing Bird along for them to save fuel, but you didn't have that luxury.
No, mate. It's to be honest, it's as much as possible. So obviously you got your car in the most fuel efficient mode possible, and then you're just trying to coast with your basically, let's just say 2% throttle or no percent, just to get the car at 60 k's or just keep it in the train. So, yeah, like you just do as much as you can possible. So, but at the end, mate, there was a bit of fuel left, so I was very happy I stayed out.
Yeah, certainly. It worked very well for you. Well, round 8, we will go to Mosport for the next round of the series. And Man, that is a wonderful circuit. As much elevation change as Zandvoort, if not more, but pretty much every turn is fast. How's the Ferrari there?
To be honest, I don't know. I've never really driven it there, but we'll find out. I don't think it will be at its peak. Like, to be honest, I was, 1 or 2 tenths, I'm going to say 1 tenth slower than Alex per lap. So it might be the same there again because of the high speed cornering, but I'll do my best to get something out of it and hopefully get up the front with them guys again.
Well, before we let you go, John, who gets it done for you?
Mate, to be honest, this week it was a bit of a solo one, so it's just keep it to ourselves and just do my thing. So, and yeah, it's just myself, mate, and just obviously thank you guys for the great broadcast.
John Peasnick there, your race winner. David, let's talk to Alex Bird, our second place finisher.
Hey, guys.
Well, hey, Alex, second place for you here. Pretty good for your championship, but what a spanner thrown in the works there by that late safety car. Did you have in your mind that a narrow circuit like this, it was definitely possible? And I mean, the strategy call to pit, you were very fortunate not to lose more spots than you did.
Yeah, look, if Simon could give Bo some tips on which way up the Porsche goes, I would probably appreciate that. Otherwise, yeah, look, we were scrambling to work it out because we didn't know how long an SC lap was. It was going to be extremely tight. And in the end, we knew the pit lane speed was the same as the SC, so we weren't going to lose any spots really. And we just went, it's not worth it. John has no points. We have all the points. We need to think about the championship. So we just took fuel and, ended up with 9 in the tank at the end. So pretty disastrous in that regard. But second is still, really good. And I'd mentioned previously podiums is what we want, and we're getting podiums. So.
Yeah, and again, a pretty strong showing from everyone at Trick Sim Sports. Here around Zandvoort, I mean, 2 safety cars is a little bit unprecedented in this championship. What is it about the circuit that made it so tough for clean racing?
Yeah, look, it's incredibly hard to pass. Certainly, we talked about, preference of undercut, overcut for the pit stop beforehand. And I reckon, you get back to 10th place, you can't pass, it gets frustrating, and guys just try and force it, which is never going to work, on a track that narrow. We certainly didn't have any of those issues up front. The front sort of 5, 6 guys, it's very, very clean, and just everybody managing tyres and trying to maximise sort of their pace through that.
Well, I mean, if you factor in that John Peasnick is functionally out of the championship after his car swap, do you then think of this as a win, or how do you rate this race?
No, it's not a win, but it's a good step forward. We're always trying to win, even though we talk about get a podium. But tonight BMW track, we were strong, 1-2 on the grid. I felt like I was just getting Ross on the ropes when the SC came out, and so I was pretty irritated for the safety car to go at that moment. But certainly, big picture thinking, it's more points than anyone else.
Well, congrats then on second place for yourself. Shout outs and thanks. Who gets done for you and Trick?
Of course, SimSpeed, of course, GLA, and then Trick Custom Fabrications, Knight Rider Designs, and the boys at Trick.
Thank you very much, Alexander Bird. And the last driver interview we're going to go to tonight is Alex's teammate, Ross Rizzo, with a very strong third place finish. Ross, it was the typical clean, understated drive from you, and you got a podium out of it as well. You and Alex, unfortunately, not getting 1-2 for Trick, but a double podium's still a good result.
Yeah, it's majorly bittersweet, I have to say. I do love this track. It's my favorite track on the service, and I knew if I was going to have actually outright win a race on outright pace, it'd be this one, and came up a bit short with the strategy in the end. So difficult pill to swallow, but it was a fantastic race. I must say it's really good to visit this track. I hope we come back soon.
Yeah, I certainly hope so too. Zandvoort is a favourite of mine as well. But the double safety car that we saw throughout the race, you and Alex Bird deciding to pit at the last opportunity there. Did you feel like you had something against John Peasnick on the final couple of laps? Because I did notice you guys fell away from him on the final lap.
Well, I actually closed in on Alex. I think he overdrove it just a little bit and then lost the chance. But I think we had genuine pace on John all night, and that's something I never thought I'd say personally. I haven't had genuine pace on John since ever. So it would have been good if we didn't, go to the pits. But with the track position, he had plenty, and he was quick enough. He did an amazing last couple of laps though as well. Probably the fastest laps of his race, I'm sure, because he was flying in those last couple of laps. So again, well done to John.
We're going to Most Sport in Canada for the next round, round 8. The BMW there seems like a pretty good prospect.
Yeah, I guess so. It's like we are starting. Well, we seem to have a bit of a decent handle on the Beamer. Personally, I wouldn't mind switching out to a different car, but the Beam it's not bad, but I do really struggle under brakes, and you might have caught a couple of hairy moments into turn 1. So luckily there aren't too many heavy braking zones at Most Sport. Well, Moss could be a bit of an interesting one, but no, we'll get some good punch out of Moss and hopefully be able to lick a couple of stamps down at the S's at the end of the straight.
Certainly be looking forward to seeing which stamps are licked and whether or not the post office is open. Thank you very much for joining us, Ross Rizzo, also of Trick Sim Sports. That brings to an end proceedings for tonight, David. Wow, what a race once again. Zandvoort, people like to talk it down a bit, I guess, because it is a very difficult track. It does have some interesting flow, and it is hard to pass around here, but certainly we saw that good racing is possible.
Yeah, indeed. I don't think there is a single way you could pack more excitement, intrigue, and drama into 45 minutes of racing. I mean, it really had it all from that lap 1 till the final lap where we were wondering, does Peasnick have enough fuel? Every single lap in the middle between them was also full of great battling. And I mean, this series turns it on once again, really. It was amazing to watch.
It certainly was. And we hope that you all enjoyed it out there too. Thank you very much for Epiroc's support of this series. Certainly fantastic to have a name like Epiroc associated with such an action-packed and prestigious championship. On the iRacing Esports Network, we are SimSpeed TV saying goodbye for now and see you very soon in 2 weeks' time for round 8 at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go!
Oh no!
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?